Friday the 13th, another day in the market, trying to push the limits as always. So what do we have here? So I'm gonna give you just a little bit of information. So we got CPI, as everybody looks for. What's the inflation numbers? What does the government say the inflation is? Well, we know the government inflation is complete jerk off numbers to give you a sense that they're tracking it, but in reality, they're just tracking small bits of it. So the CPI itself, the consumer price index, says that inflation's flat. We're only at 2%. It's well, not flat. It's at their 2% measurement. So it's up by 2%. So that's what we're saying. It's gone up by 2% from the last reading of 2%. So ultimately they're keeping that 2% reading intact is what they're claiming. That's the way I'm reading this, of course. Now somebody may disagree with how I read that. Now we're also the core CPI is up to 3% versus the 2% before. So now we have that continuing to go. So it's showing that inflation is still going up. It's way above that. We all know that. If you watch some of the reels that are out there, there's a dude who I know I've referenced it before here, but a guy went to Costco, January 2025, took pictures of the prices of stuff he normally buys. January 2026 did the same thing. What was it? 75% increase on the average. CPI is not telling us the real deal, guys. So because of that, though, we have this little bit of situation. I would have thought that we'd have interest rates, or at least the mortgage-backed securities, take a little bit of a hit. It didn't work that way. And I'm wondering, why not? But then we go back and we look. I'm going to share a screen with you guys, looking at some of the information that's going on out there. And the administration is still pushing hard to lower rates and do quantitative easing. So you want to look at these articles that are out there. There's going to be some sword fighting between the Fed and the administration going forward, even though Trump gets to appoint the new Fed chairman. Now, the other thing is you got to see here, at least what I see, there's a lot of interesting things that you see that what's headline when it comes to what's going on with our current administration and what actually happens and what the outcome is tends to be slight. There's a little bit of maneuvering that goes on there. We learn different things occurring. So it's hard to say what's really driving it, but I personally believe that because there's a lot of talk of quantitative easing, there's a lot of talk of pushing rates down, there's a lot of just press from the current administration trying to force all that. That's why I think that the bond market is doing what it's doing. It's not from CPI. From that CPI, the traditional reaction would have been to see it go down. Well, what we saw yesterday is it pushed above that line that we've been talking about, and this line is established. Look at it. I mean, it's just banging on that line like crazy. And this is the line that I had drawn to show the value of the Fannie Mae or the UMBS 5.5 from the day they announced quantitative easing. This was the value of where that day started. It traded lower, traded up higher, but pulled back. And what's interesting, I'm curious, this trade point, if this is one, what is that? That peaked out at like 102.01. So you can see here, we're peaking out here. 102.01 is where that peaked out at. I'm going to drag this back. I'm just curious. I could be nothing, but I want to know. And I'll just do it in front of all you guys and see if we learned something today together. So I'm going to go back to that date in 2008. And what is that? 102.25. That's where it traded at. That's where the max trade was on the day they announced quantitative easing. So put that there, 102.25. Okay, so it's not 102.01. 102.01 was here. So yeah, about there. So we've seen some, that was a floor for right here is where I trade at. So that's this floor. So that's why we traded to that peak. So that's that floor right there. We can create. So that's the top of this candle where it opened somewhere in there. So that's where I thought maybe this candle might have done that, but nope, it didn't. So nothing crazy to see. Let me zoom back over here so we can look back at this. That's a lot of traction there. We've got a lot of history in this. A lot of water under the bridge. Okay, so that's where we're at right now. And see, it's also starting to receding since we started talking. Starting to receding back a little bit. It's at the top of the wick from yesterday. So it's going to be interesting to see how today plays out. If it maintains this position above it or backs below this line and puts it back in that valuation window without actual quantitative easing, planning, and execution. That's what I think keeps it up there. is all the saber rattling about quantitative easing and all the talk of, you know, the administration trying to push hard on the Fed, drop the interest rates, push interest rates lower for people to buy houses. And you know what happens when that happens. There's a lot of lenders out there, just they can't wait for it to go down, so they're going to convince you to refi. If you have an investment property and you're thinking, I'm going to refinance my $100,000 loan and get that interest rate down a quarter, I'm going to pay $5,000-$6,000 to get the interest rate down to 1%. You really need to rethink that thought. I don't believe that's the best way for you to spend your capital. It just really is not. There's an expense that puts you back into a heavy interest period, so you become a slave. Don't put yourself in slavery, some bitches. Appreciate you.